Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Deputy Prime Ministers, Honourable Cabinet Ministers, the Honourable Leader of Opposition, Honourable Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, fellow countrywomen and men, and to those from around the world who are listening in through the various media platforms. Bula Binaka, and in the better part of Fiji we say Bula Binaa, Bula Sia, Mioza Bula Re. But I'm reminded that in the better part of Fiji they say Samalo Bula. Mr. Speaker, I express my gratitude for the privilege to address the Parliament today. I extend my sincere appreciation to the President, His Excellency Toke Mbolatangane, and Turanga Tuimaduata, to William Katunivere for his most gracious speech and for officially inaugurating the 2024 Parliament of Fiji. Mr. Speaker, the perpetual task of ushering a nation into a brighter destiny for her people remains a formidable challenge everywhere around the world, and even so true for developing countries. I express my gratitude to His Excellency for providing a roadmap to this Parliament on how those perpetual tasks and formidable challenges can be met by all of us, representatives of our fellow Fijians in this Parliament. His Excellency's articulation of the government's proposed legislative agenda, policies and programs signifies a dedicated commitment to the ongoing reconstruction of an advancing and more prospering Fiji. As members of this Parliament, it is incumbent upon us to fulfill our duties as legislators and work towards delivering Fijians their country's best days, which we confess is still ahead of us. I urge us all that we embrace, even in our divide, we can, and as one, we surely will. We are reminded by His Excellency, the President, that as democratically elected members, we listen to the voices of our people, not limited only to those who voted for us, but to all our citizens, young and old, men and women, able and disabled, people of all faiths and of all creeds. Even in our divide, we can, and as one, we will. Mr. Speaker, as we earnestly strive to collectively rebuild our future together as a nation, the Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources remains unwavering in our commitment to innovative strategies harmoniously aligned with our annual plans and our budgeted programs. This year, 2024, is poised for us to be a very transformative period, a year anticipated for much better performance, creation of a much enhanced work environment, laser focus to customer needs, and streamlined response times to better serve all stakeholders. It is our steadfast pledge at the Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources to usher in a year of uplift across every facet of our operation. I have laid a challenge, Mr. Speaker, to my ministry this year. Every inch of land, our responsibility, must be used. And it must be used sustainably, utilized for residential, agricultural development, integrated or otherwise, and for organized sustainable forestry plan that is in line with our global targets to resist the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Consequently, the Ministry is working with the Department of Town and Country Planning in finalizing the State Lands Land Use Plan for Fiji. Apart from the comprehensive review of the antiquated State Lands Act of 1945, we are also looking at critical aspects of our regulations in penalties, revenue collections, lease conditions, and reassessments, amongst others. Mr. Speaker, echoing the sentiments of His Excellency, the importance of agriculture as the backbone of our economy for both food security and export cannot be overstated. In alignment with his vision and to contribute to the diversification of our economy, as well as the generation of income for both rural Fijians and commercial agricultural investment, the Ministry remains steadfast to its commitment to Fijian growth. Our focus persists on preserving as much fertile agricultural land as possible. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to ensure that all state agricultural land is provided to only those who will plant on it and help maximize its return to benefit not just themselves, but the Fijian economy as a whole. Increased collaboration amongst agencies has been reignited with the objective to maximize agricultural opportunities as a tool to alleviating poverty amongst us. The Ministry, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Itoke, has started in our cluster meetings to work in partnership to retain as much agricultural land as possible. This brings me to the state lands known initially as Crown Grants and Native Grants that was advertised by the TLTB for consultation in the newspaper. I want to assure the tenants on those parcels of land, do not panic. Do not allow unscrupulous politicians to use you as a battering ram for cheap partisan political points. The state will honor its leases with you, full stop. Be at peace, plant, live, let your children go to school, you yourselves go to work. This is your government, and you are valuable citizens of this country. Should there be land that is unused in any of these CGs and NTs, these will be identified and processed through the provisions of the law of our country to be used for the benefit of the original Itoke landowners. Mr. Speaker, as mentioned earlier, we place specific emphasis on the allocation and identification of state land for high return investments. This strategic approach aims to attract investment and foster the creation of new job opportunities for a broader spectrum of all Fijians. Our commitment to this endeavour remains unwavering as we strive to stimulate economic growth and prosperity across the nation. Mr. Speaker, with government's commitment to SDG 6 in providing access to clean water as a fundamental right of every Fijian, and with increasing demand for groundwater resources for household consumption, agriculture and commercial water bottling, the Ministry has finished and completed the National Groundwater Resource Management Development Policy, which will ensure sustainable use and management of one of the world's finest groundwater resources. The Ministry will prioritize services to all its customers by reviewing existing policies and formulating new policies for the sustainable management of land, minerals, and underground water resources. Number two, reviewing our standard operating procedures at the Ministry to continuously cut out the red tapes or the bureaucratic processes, at the same time digitizing some of them. And number three, the continual review of the Act or acts under our purview and its regulations. The Ministry will continue to ensure that we strike the right balance between the fulfillment of our role and function, support and encourage economic activities whilst ensuring that our environment and resources is sustainably protected and managed. Mr. Speaker, encouraging foreshore development in Fiji presents a promising avenue for economic growth and for sustainable tourism. Embracing the concept of building over water, successfully implemented overseas, can elevate Fiji's tourism industry to new heights. Integrating eco-friendly and culturally sensitive designs, such developments could showcase the stunning natural beauty of Fiji's coastal areas, whilst providing unique and luxurious accommodation to our visitors, both local here and abroad. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Kirpa, who is not here now, mentioned the poor delivery from the Ministry to the public sector, since the Ministry have not provided any sales data on properties sold in Fiji since last year. I mentioned here in Parliament last year that the FRCS has stopped giving the Ministry of Lands confidential information. We then pursued the option with the Ministry of Justice, and on the 6th of November of 2023, we signed off on a memorandum of understanding with them. Now, due to the confidentiality and responsibilities that arise out of the MOU, a separate agreement now has been drafted and is now being vetted by the Office of the Solicitor General for individual registered valuers to sign off on. Given that it is an initiative by the Ministry with fees involved and with the new Cabinet Circular of 1 of 2024, that policy needs to go to Cabinet endorsement before it is available for execution by registered valuers. We endeavour, Mr. Speaker, to have all of this sorted this month, and a Cabinet paper will be presented and bring out the much needed data by the end of April of 2024. Mr. Speaker, last Friday the Ministry, in alignment with the Ministry of Civil Service, has regularized 89 officers who have met the criteria stipulated in the circular for regularization of civil service. Out of the 89 officers, 47 were confirmed to their positions, whereas 42 officers had their salary bands upgraded and now regularized as part of the Ministry's retention strategies. This commitment, Mr. Speaker, reflects our dedication to fostering a supportive and conducive environment for our staff, recognizing that a content and well-equipped team is essential for achieving organizational goals. Mr. Speaker, this takes me to the point made by the other side on the rise in immigration and loss of skilled and professional workforce from this country. Don't they realize, Mr. Speaker, the blame falls squarely on the shoulders of their government when it was in power? The numbers that were presented today by the Honourable Wakalalambure, that 34,797 emigrated from Fiji between 2012 to 2022. That's an average of 3,866 per year. How do you explain that? Those they lament about that left in 2023, Mr. Speaker, were the ones who were already planning to leave when they were in government. They wanted to throw the blame on us in our 14 years being in government for the people, 14 months whilst being in government. Hold on a minute. It will be 14 years. Hold on a minute. There will be a long ride on that side of the House, Mr. Speaker. They want to throw the blame on us for people who left during the 14 months. What have they got to say about people who left in 16 years? They must realize, Mr. Speaker, that the world now grapples with circular migration. World citizens move, and they move in speed. It is inevitable. New Zealanders leave for Australia, Australians leave for Europe and the United States. Our citizens find greener pastures in Australia and New Zealand and also elsewhere, and they are quite entitled to do so. Whilst they are there, they send funds to their families back home. Our remittances go up, our economy improves, which is what we all agree is needed here in Fiji. And I encourage the opposition, Mr. Speaker, please see the bright side of what you criticize. We all agree, Mr. Speaker, that the recent spate of drug busts in the West is beyond shocking. It wakes us to a dangerous potential that can destroy the nation we all love. When I was a young prosecutor, Mr. Speaker, more than 2 decades ago, such finds of drugs that we found recently in Langalanga and in Mangalevu could not even possibly be thought of. As prosecutors, we learn of the trend. Every crime starts small. Without detection, it festers. Without detection, it aggravates. What's the point that I'm making here, Mr. Speaker? The find of many tons recently simply means that in earlier times, a kilogram passed through. Not detected, 10 kilograms passed through. It continues until it is detected, and as we have seen recently, tons of it. You don't get suddenly tons pass through our shores. What it means is that it festers and it increases over time. Improvement. Mr. Speaker, may I ask the government who were in charge when the kilogram passed through, when 10 kilogram passed through, when 100 kilogram passed through, and when the first ton passed through, came through our doors, that government, please put your hands up. 16. Mr. Speaker, the drug problem in our country must now be Parliament's problem, because we are legislators. I'm told that in 2019, a motion was moved in this House by the then opposition members for a joint committee to combat Fiji's drug problem. We all know how that day ended. Instead of trying to win cheap partisan points, please revisit that motion and bring it up. You will see that this government will support it without reservation. Mr. Speaker, the challenge laid in this House by His Excellency must not fall to the ground. We must catch the challenge like the Ndruo boys have performed. We must run with the challenge of working bipartisan on all matters that affect us as a nation. We must work together on matters that even the opposition have laid as challenges that they have heard in their visits. Mr. Speaker, there is no room for fear-mongering in this Parliament. There is no room for generalization without data, as we have heard all day for 3 days from the opposition. No room for marginalization from posts you read on social media unless you have it on credibility. We understand their role as watchdog of executive decision, and so there is no need for marginalization, generalization, and fear-mongering. Get used to the chair that you now occupy, because it's going to be a long ride for the next 20 years on that side of the House. This government, Mr. Speaker, is a government for all. There is no political preference. There is no political preference for a particular race. This is a government that was voted into power by all Fijians, and we will serve all Fijians. Like the early memories of His Excellency growing up in the cane belt of Maduata, with all the races that call Maduata their home. My own memories in my village in Law is very clear. For those of you who know Buddha Bay, will know of New Law, Mr. Speaker, a parcel of arable land that was initially leased in the 1900s to 3 families of Indian origin. I don't know of the original lessee's name, but their offsprings, whom we know when we were children, the name was Kuku Ramundasi, Kuku Pitachi, Kuku Nanka, who was the first owner of a Daihatsu van in the whole of Buddha Bay. He was my father's brother from another mother. Kuku Nanu, Kuku Chindo, who went on to establish a shop in Kasawa, Mr. Speaker, and of course, we all know Kuku Ramtari. These hardworking men and their wives have sons. One was Ramesh. We call him Tui because he carried my grandfather's name. Chone Pitachi, who is the son of Kuku Pitachi, carries even my own father's name. These children are all well established, Sausavu, Lambasa, Suva, and even beyond. We remain close to this day, Mr. Speaker. Rakesh, who is the son of Parsad, is the owner and proud owner of Paradise Digging Services Limited, one of the subcontractors of roads established very well in Savu today. Mr. Speaker, this is the Fiji His Excellency wants us to recreate and deliver to Fiji and her people. His Excellency is speaking to us for the Fiji and the multiracialism that made this country the depiction of the way the world should be. This is the country that we can be remembered for creating and giving to the next batch of young and more vibrant parliamentarians in the future. I want to wish all Hindus in Fiji celebration of Holi, citizens of Fiji here and abroad, well in the holy month of Ramadan, and to all Christian brothers and sisters, a blessed Easter in the month of March. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your indulgence, and I thank His Excellency for his most gracious speech. I support the Honourable Prime Minister's motion. Speaker.